Welcome to Chords and Crossroads, a show that brings together songwriters, music industry voices, and other creatives to share the pivotal crossroads that shape their journey. Thanks for joining us today. I'm so happy to have my guest, Michael Lisenby. He is a Nashville country artist, and he is here today to talk about his music and how he's using his writing and his singing to give people hope, overcome fear and pain. He has traded his badge for a guitar, and we are so happy to have him with us today. Thanks, Michael, for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's my honor.
I'm really glad that you're here with us and look forward to all that we get to learn from you. So, I want to begin because I met you initially when I was at one of my favorite events around Nashville and heard you play. And I heard you play and sing a song called Storms. And that really called to me. And it was so authentic
Mm.
and amazing, the lyrics and the way you sang it. And so I just want to go back a little bit. Did you grow up in Washington State?
Yeah, I did. Born and raised out there, and you know, you get all the different seasons and all the different weather. But yeah, that song I wrote with my buddy Zach Henson, and we just were kind of kicking around different ideas of just the correlations of you know, I think God, how He designed this world and our lives and stuff is very you know, symbiotic with like both nature and
Mm,
how we live and how we there's so many crossroads of how in the similarities with both weather and just the storms we face in life. So it's just like we kind of try to have a little um the balance between that of the symbolism with how, life can throw a lot of storms at you. And like we briefly talked about with the idea that I always just had this um fascination or with like buffalo and how they react as a herd
oh
when
my
they're
word,
when
yes,
when
share
they when
that.
they
That's so
face
good.
when they see storms coming, they stand apart from other herd animals, at least in this case, horses, cows, cattle, deer, any like plains or creature that's out there. They do it different where when they sense storms coming, rather than trying to flee the storm or try to get out of the way, they huddle together as a community, as a herd, as family, and they go straight into the storm because instinctually they know that when they stay together, they're stronger and they go right into the storm, they're stronger and they can usually wear out that storm and get through the other side together, less harmed, and really with more strength to get through versus if you try to flee the storm or constantly try to get away from it,
Ugh,
you separate, you get further apart, whether literally, physically, or relationally, and you can get beat up, you get tired, you get wore out, and then whenever that storm finally gets you, you're in a less advantageous position to handle it versus sticking together. And then, even from the next level on that was like from a father to your child's perspective, when you try to teach them that life is beautiful, but life is also hard. There's a lot
yes.
of storms and problems that'll come, and you can't always run from it. So the best thing you can do is, in a lot of ways, especially like I'm a father, I got 3 kids with another one on the way. Is the idea that we've got to start on ramping them and not totally shield them from the idea that nothing bad's ever going to happen. It's like, no, bad things will happen, but take my hand, we'll go straight through this together. We'll get through it, and you'll see that even though these hard times come, if you keep your nose down and just, you know, hit it and just, with the right intention, with the right motivation, you can weather a lot of these storms. So that was kind of the idea behind it. And
That's
I don't know,
amazing.
I like how it turned out.
You know what, I love that, and I love that was your heart for that song, and it's such a good lesson for us because I know the minute I start trying to avoid the hard things,
Yeah.
it becomes harder. I don't know how long it'll take me to learn that.
Well,
To
it's almost like procrastination. I used to have a real struggle with that. It's like you
Yes.
realize it's like you start stressing about just the idea that it's just this undone thing you got to take care of. Whereas just go do it. You're gonna
Yep.
you're gonna take that weight off your shoulders, handle it, and you realize it wasn't the more stress was coming from just the avoidance of it. So just go deal with it, especially when you're have the strength and energy at the time, or and just knock it out and get through it.
That is so true in the story of my life, probably still today. I keep trying to get past that. And I also love the way you put it. As a father, taking the hand of your child and doing it with them. And I think so often we forget in the midst of the storm. It feels so hard to do that with our loved ones, but
Right.
also I know you're a man of faith and just that whole parallel with God's always there. He's holding our hand. And we need to remember that as we're pushing through
Yep.
and getting through storms ourselves in life,
Yep.
no matter no matter our age, because sometimes we can be grown-ups and it's still storms are coming, literal, figurative. What would you say if you look back on your life when you were young? Was there a storm or was there like a joyful crossroad that made you say, "This is it. This music, this is my thing."
Well, I always music was always kind of a part of my life growing up. I was sang
Mhm.
all the time in church and in the schools, and like choir and stuff like that growing up, and so I always had a passion for singing, and but what kind of started changing the game was I started playing guitar. My in-laws, they had a that kind they I credit them a lot, like my father-in-law, for getting me back in wanting to play, like, guitar. Because they had basically like a little they had their garage all set up with drums and amps and guitars, and they would play all the time. It was kind of like a
Oh, that's so
modern day,
fun.
like, Von Trapp kind of
I
thing with
love
like,
that.
so music was always part of that, and it got me kind of in the idea of playing, actually playing and singing more. And I hadn't played, and once I got out of school, like, I went and I became a cop and just kind of focused on that. So music kind of took a back seat. Like, I mean, I was still singing in like worship choir and stuff like that at church and things like that, but it was definitely a lesser part of
Mhm.
my life, but the passion was still there. So I start playing more. I start playing live, like a patrol partner of mine. We roadsided one night at like 3 in the morning, and he played drums, and I sang and played guitar now, and he just kind of was like having like this little epiphany. He just goes, "Hey," he's like, "What? We should start a band." And I was like, "Get out of here!"
Oh, I
And
love
like just
that.
like a cover band, just like something like a little moonlight thing that we all had music in our passion and things like that, and so we kind of kicked it around. And then I had a buddy of mine that played lead guitar. I shot him a text. I was like, "Hey, we're kind of thinking about doing this.
I
Would you be
love
interested?" And he
that.
must have responded within like 0.2 seconds of like all caps, like yes, exclamation
I'm
mark, all
in.
I'm down. And so that kind of started kicking things off, and we kind of just did the whole come up with your cover band list, kind of, because at that point I hadn't really been. I mean, I'd been writing a little bit for myself and just
Mhm.
for the things I'd gone through, but this was kind of purely just for the fun of it. So we started moonlighting as a little country cover band out there in the greater Seattle area, and so we had a few little honey hole spots that we'd play, and just kind of really started cutting our teeth with the live music side of things. And that really got my love for that part. And then as we progressed, I started getting more convicted to write more and start putting my stuff out. Because originally I started writing a little bit and with just stuff that was helping me get through stuff, things
Mhm.
that I'd gone through and faced. And I started naturally just kind of finding myself putting it to song. And that kind of progressed to where um, I got inspired by some buddies of mine, really encouraging me to, kind of the one that kind of started it was a song I wrote called Battle Cry, where I basically wrote that about, I wanted to write kind of like you know, not just a generic, nothing against it, but not like just a generic, you know, Americana or like, patriotic or like soldiering
Yes.
song, but like I wanted to have a little more specific to an incident that impacted me. And one that kept coming to mind was called Operation Red Wings. And it was a mission in Afghanistan, and where, I don't know if you ever seen the movie Lone Survivor, with like
I haven't.
Mark Wahlberg and so it's a good flick, but it's basically about that exact story where, 4 SEALs were going out and doing some recon mission trying to ID a target they were looking for, but they got compromised and got a big battle, and 3 of them got killed, 1 got out. But then we also, when they were launching the rescue mission, The helicopter got shot down, so we ended up losing a whole bunch of special operators
Oh
in
my
that mission.
word.
But that kind of kept sticking with me. And a buddy of mine, he was a cop in a neighboring agency, but he was with the at the time was with the ranger element that ended up going out and helping with the rescue mission. So I got to really get his version of the story, and so we got to kind of really get a little, on the ground view of it.
Mhm.
And so I wrote that song. Came out to Nashville to record it, and it I think it turned out really well. And it kind of my whole goal for that was as just a as just a testament to honor of those that we lost
Yes.
and those that served in this specific
Mhm.
style of event, because it affected so many people. It was at the time one of the biggest special
I
operations
remember
losses we
hearing
had.
about it,
Yeah.
right? Wasn't there a book too? Or was it
There's
just
I
a
think
movie?
there's been a couple books I think come out, like Marcus Luttrell was one of the SEALs that survived,
Okay,
and he
yes.
was I think he wrote a book about it. But it was a big deal, and still is,
Yes.
and it's affected a lot of the folks in the special operations community for a lot of different reasons. But I really my whole goal is I want to put this out, and hopefully it gets to those folks that are involved, whether it's the people that survived the incident or the surviving families, to just,
Mm.
because it was such a big deal with Michael Murphy, with he basically put himself out. He ended up being one of the ones that got killed, but his main thing was he had to get out on this exposed ledge to make a final call to bring in
Oh,
help.
wow.
And so that's where the battle cry came in of just
I love that you wrote that and
yeah,
you included someone who'd actually knows that
right,
world,
eh,
and taken that and deeper because that so authentically just adds into the meaning
right,
of that. And one of my questions I wanted to ask you, and it sounds like this did that for you, and or at least you putting it together for other people to help them
yeah,
was have you worked on songs that helped you process pain and hard things? I love it that because I'm sure you do have those, but I
yeah,
love it that you intentionally did the song Battle Cry is
yep,
the name of it. Battle Cry to reach out and help others process their pain or remembrance or honoring or whatever that looks like. I
yeah,
think that music is so one of the reasons I love being in the music world and being involved in music my whole life in one way or another is because it speaks to us, it pulls that out, it can comfort us, it can inspire us, give us hope.
yeah,
And I love that you did that with a song because that will be there forever
right.
to help anyone. And even if it's not a specific situation like that, those things resonate, don't you think?
I think so. And like I said, one of the goals was to get to at least those involved in it. And from to my knowledge, it's gotten to at least
Mm,
a lot of the folks that were involved in that, which, did my heart good because it sounded like, they had a lot of good response to it. But to like your point on then, it kind of spurred the healing process for myself where um the one I'll probably play later was kind of a really one close to the chest for me as far as um early on in my career in law enforcement. I was young and strong and didn't think I could take on the
mm.
world and could just, just a little hot shot, and just, but my world really changed a lot. So I just finished going through our state SWAT school and just on top of the world. But in one of my instructors there, was just, Mr. Mark Reniger, rest his soul. Um, he really impacted me in a lot of good ways, and just someone I really looked up to, just super squared away guy, just top of his game. And then not but about 3 weeks after, um, I graduated, him and 3 other officers in a nearby agency of mine, they all got ambushed in a coffee shop and were murdered.
Oh my
And
word.
so it really changed my perspective
Mm.
on, the day to day of law enforcement, on just the fact that, you obviously had to. I was cued in on like, hey, you got to see and address threats that you can see, but that really kind of changed my perspective on, hey, you've got to start factoring all these different things that you can't see. So that impacted me a lot and since then, I've kept a little, special bottle of bourbon at home to wherever we have a line of duty death.
Mm.
I take a little small pull off that to remember those and honor those we lost.
Oh
But the
wow.
idea that post that incident, even though we lose these folks in our life, my hope and prayer is that we'll see them again in heaven, and we'll share another round, and
Mm, love that.
pick up where we left off, and just swap stories. But that, even though that they were gone too soon, it's like, it was still hard, and we still miss them. But that
Yes.
helped me and a lot of other folks that are close to those incidents, or at least incidents similar to that, you know, give them a little peace and comfort of just, that you can still miss them, but you can still honor them, and that, praying to get to see them again. So that's one I wrote that was pretty close to the chest for me. But then beyond that, I started realizing that music and songs started really helping with my journey. So I mean, I wrote a lot of the topics that people weren't really talking about. I wrote one about suicide from the perspective of the surviving friends and family, because
Oh,
I'd go to
wow.
so many suicides, on the job, and
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 listen, there's
there's
such a mental health crisis right
it's
now.
unbelievable, and it's like, in the idea that, and
Wow.
and it's hard because, it's such a crisis and epidemic right now. And
Mhm.
then those, I've seen it so many times where folks, when they're in there, that space where a lot of times that they're feel like they're in such a no-win, zero-sum game,
Mhm.
and that they almost convince themselves that, the people in their life that they care about are going to be better off with if they're
Mhm.
not there, or that they'll understand, and all these different things to kind of, for lack of better ways, to make them feel better about
Mhm.
making that next step. But if they my thought and prayer with that song, and it's called Hammer Down, is that if they saw the devastation and the
Mhm.
damage it does,
Mhm.
and I mean, this isn't trying to cast shade to them, but the idea is
Mm-mm.
that it's the reality that if they're trying to mitigate pain and suffering on those they love, this is not the answer,
Right.
because that pain doesn't end in the sense of the song. When the hammer's down,
Mhm.
it gets transferred to those that they love and care about, and that's going to have ripples effects and ramifications long, sometimes generationally. And so my hope is that
That's
if just
true.
even one person was on that cusp of it, hears that song, and just maybe has a moment's pause to at least try again,
Yeah.
it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's just so, that's kind of my goal now, is trying to write things and put stuff out that are either stuff that I've directly been involved in, or I've written about. I was involved in a shooting myself that affected me greatly, and that really kind of was a, a pivoting point in my life that really kind of started the chain of my ended up getting out of law enforcement, but
Mm.
then opening the doors to pursue music full time. So
Mhm.
it was a tragedy, but then it was also just another step in my story that I hadn't had the vision about, because you don't really calculate that. You don't
Yeah.
calculate, in my mind, I was going to be a cop until I was 53 years old. Then I'd retire, get the gold watch, and then we go retire somewhere warm.
Mhm.
And that was how I thought my life was going to play out. And that ended up changing a lot, you know, and, but, God works in mysterious ways, and we don't always, his ways are higher than our ways. And we don't get to see more than, like he talks about, it's like he gives you enough light to take the next step. You don't get to see
Yeah.
how it ends. I mean, we know how it ends, but but in your personal journey, it's like he gives you just enough to keep making the steps in the right way, and trying to stay on that straight and narrow as much as possible. And there's a lot of healing in that, and a lot of comfort in that, because I don't need to know all the answers. I just need to know that, am I doing right by him? Am I doing right by my family? And am I leading
Mhm.
them as best I can, and being the best friend I can be? And then taking whatever gifts and skills I have that, he's blessed me with, to hopefully impact others in a positive way. And that's kind of where my music journey is
That's
now.
that's such a great attitude, and I'm the worst about I will borrow worry from next week or next year
Yeah.
or 2 2 years from now, and then I'm like, "Okay, reel it in, sister." That is not how we're supposed to live.
Yeah. And it compounds.
It
It,
does, and it doesn't, I can't remember the exact verse, but "We have enough worry today, don't worry about tomorrow."
yeah.
And so I try to do I need to go listen to that because I try to do the same thing with, okay, here's where what's in front of me today, and I'm going to do that. And then I want to make sure I'm doing right by everybody in my world who's in my little sphere right now,
Yeah.
and I need to work on that. So thank you for sharing that. That was a pivotal point because that's what I was going to ask you. Is there anything that occurred that kind of sent you in the, all right, this is what I need to be doing now?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes I love this because see, it's about music, but it's about life too.
Yeah.
Sometimes no matter what your vocation or your career or your dreams, it can feel like, well, I don't know, should I really be doing X right now?
Right.
And so I love that testimony of yours that here's where I was, here's what happened. It was um, bad. It also was used for good because it tipped me this way, and then here I am.
Yeah.
So how did I'm curious too because I know you are joyfully married
Hmm.
and I want to know how did that work with taking this, you're at a big crossroad and you say, "Hey honey,
Yeah.
how about Nashville?"
Well, you know, it's that you kind of took the words right out of my mouth on the big unsung hero in my journey and my healing is my wife.
Mm,
And, you know, the amount of burden she shouldered, cause, you know, I spiraled down pretty hard for a while, like post that incident.
mm,
And, you know, I ended up going to obviously voluntarily to a really great, like PTSD, counseling
mm.
place in Utah for 35 days. And that really was something
I'm
that was
impressed. Good job.
it was a very thank you. It
Mhm.
was one of the hardest things, but one of the best things I ever did. Because it's really, it's one of those things where it's like, especially that, whether you're a cop or in the military or, it's like you're the guy that is supposed to be able to go in there and handle those things. Where now I was in a position where my identity was in question because I'm usually the guy that's supposed to go in. Where
Mm,
now it's like I feel broken and like I'm now hating this job I once loved, and it's affecting me physically, mentally, even spiritually in ways.
sure.
And the wheels are starting to fall off. And I had to go make that choice to go do that. My brother in law went through some similar stuff, and he went through that place and was really encouraging for that. And just I kind of threw my hands up and trusted
Mm,
that God was putting the right things in my path, and I went, but, in the mindset of where I had is like, I was still hyper focused on just trying to damage control what I was going through. And she, with her amazing patience and strength, she was, left, for to deal with, we had 3 little ones at the time.
mm,
And once I got out of that and, had some clarity, the decision was that I was going to be getting out of law enforcement. And, but then what? It's like, that's all I'd been doing since I was, 22 years old, and I hadn't had a plan B. And so it's like, and it was this, and back we were living, a little bit outside of like the Seattle area where it's at the time, it still is a very expensive area. And I'm now having this battle of, okay, I'm the father, I'm the husband. How do I provide now? If I'm getting out of this where it's like, it's a good job,
mhm,
salary, benefits, all that stuff. Now getting out and going into zero, where
mhm.
do I go with that? Where we can manage our life here? And we kind of chewed on that for a little while. And, my wife, she just kind of said the quiet part out loud of just, well, what if we just move to Tennessee and just give music a run? And it was really this like show stop moment of just really once she said that out loud,
Wow.
and like it almost gave me
Mhm.
permission and authorization to think differently on how our life was going to be, and that it's really about us and how we can grow as a family, and how what my next mission is really and what my next journey is, and or us together. And truly once she kind of said that out loud, um everything related to staying in the Northwest, trying to play
Mhm.
triage and just,
Mhm.
of what we're gonna do was closing, like, clearly. And everything related to just taking that leap of faith and moving and really going for it was opening, which is crazy because it's, like, as well as anybody that music is, let's just say, not exactly the most secure forms of employment,
That's a good way
especially
to
out
put it.
here. And so jumping into that in the deep end of just, I
Yes.
mean, we bought a house, we put a pin on Nashville, drew like an hour circle around it, found a house that was within budget that we could, that was available that we could afford. We bought it sight unseen. I drove out with the dog and a trailer full of our stuff, and then a few days
Wow.
later, my wife one wayed out with 3 kids. We always joke about who had the harder travel, me driving with the dog and the trailer for stuff, or
Mm,
the one way trip. And I think the feather goes to her cap on that one.
I'm gonna vote with you on that. Yes.
So but we kind of pulled the trigger on it, and it's been it's been an amazing journey ever since. And we've now been here a little over 3.5 years, um, and both myself and her and our family and our walk with the Lord is just stronger than ever, and just it's nothing but looking up, and
That's
I'm
amazing.
excited for this journey and just what God's got in store. And a lot of those, but like with any big things, most times it just comes with acting on faith. And if it's
Mhm.
if it makes sense, if it checks the boxes, and you're doing it for the right reasons, you don't need to have all these answers and insurances and things like that. I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't have anything. I just we're gonna go figure it out, and started playing wherever I could, whether it's rounds or gigs or bars, and just try to get my foot in the door and immerse myself, and have met great people along the way. And I'm still on my journey, and I'm still doing my side hustles and my welding, my building and stuff like that on the side to keep the lights on. But they don't call it a 10-year town for no reason.
That's
But
true.
our life and quality of life has just exponentially grown in the better. And even with things like even us moving, because we moved out here not really knowing a soul, our relationships with our families have gotten better
Yeah.
because they've come out and visited all, like we said, my in-laws are coming out again next week. We're going to Dollywood and just making all these
Mhm.
memories, because separation has a funny thing
Yes.
where, you know, proximity can have it's nice because you're close, but it's also you can, you know, um, what's the word? Take it for granted because you're
Yes.
close.
That's
Oh, I'll
true.
see him tomorrow. It's like, but you never
That's
do. And
true.
then when you do, it's just very almost informal. Where now these relationships we have with our family, I think, are getting a lot deeper and stronger because the time we do spend is so much more quality and purposeful.
Yeah, I'm
And
very
so
intentional
very,
too.
very intentional.
I would imagine. And well, and I don't have any family here either. And so I go back home and try to, and also trying to maintain just any way we can
Yeah.
ongoing. So that's true.
Yeah.
I love how supportive your whole family's been about the entire journey. I know there probably are moments, but the fact that your wife is y'all are such a strong team,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Yeah, let's go try it." And so I will say, when you're stepping into the unknown, have those people around you who are going to support you and be willing to step out there, because it can be really scary and really hard. But I love what you said, Michael, about if you're doing it for the right reason,
Mhm.
if this is where you really feel like you're being led to go, you don't have to have all the answers. I mean, that's part of it. And you and I know a life of faith isn't having all the answers. And
Right.
sometimes I would like more answers, before I
Oh,
do things,
his
but
ways are higher than our ways, and
they are, and we're not gonna have them. But I do know that when you feel that peace
yeah.
of and that conviction, I call it like that conviction of I have to do this. Like I have to do this in a joyful way, not in
Right.
a drudgery, but like I always think about it and go, if it makes my soul kind of sing,
Mm.
even though it's scary and still hard. That's the other thing. It doesn't mean it's going to be easier. It just means I know I'm going on the right path.
Yeah. Well,
And
fear is a protector. That's what one of the things I learned when I was in
yes, yes.
that therapy place was. And shout out to them, Deer Hollow. They're doing amazing work.
Mm, that's awesome.
It's just fear is a protector, and it keeps you from repeating things that hurt you in the past. But
Mhm.
like I said, it's almost like with the storms. You can't always avoid these storms. Sometimes you just gotta hit it from the right way, and you'll get through. You might be beat up and bruised, but you'll survive and you'll get through. And I like to believe that more often than not, you come out a better person because you're more experienced and you've got your relationships get stronger. And even like with our family, it's like they were all heartbroken that we were leaving,
Mhm.
but at the same time they understood. And I
Yeah.
think that's what really set the foundation that we could build off of, is that that level of understanding. And I really appreciated that. And it's just like I said, we're still learning, we're still figuring it out. But but every day is a blessing. And
I love that. I love it. Okay, we're going to have a special treat because I want you to talk about one of your songs of your choosing. Tell the story behind it. and let us know, and then we're going to have you play it, because that's one of the things I want to do. I want to hear his songs. I want you to hear them. I want you to know his heart and know what this show is all about. So you're going to share your story about the song and then play it for us acoustically, and then
Love it.
you
Yeah,
can
I
play
think
us on out. And we're so grateful that you were here on the show today. So big
well,
round of applause wherever you are.
well, I appreciate you and like and just the opportunity to come out here and be a
Well,
part of this. I think it's an amazing thing you're doing, and I appreciate you for it.
your story's incredible, and thank you for sharing your heart. Oh, and that's the other thing. And don't be, I mean, be courageous and get the help wherever you need it.
Amen.
Don't be scared of it, because when you walk into it, like you were saying about storms, I love that you were brave and you faced it and you went in and said, I got to do it,
Yeah.
because it will only make you stronger, and you're not weak when you seek help at all.
No,
You're actually being very strong and courageous. So thank you for that.
absolutely. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll probably the thing I was thinking about was just because it was one that that one we briefly talked on. Like, I got a bottle was just the idea that um, it kind of gave me the strength and motivation to take some of these hard things that impacted me to then put it to song and then start putting it out to try to help folks. So I'd like to probably give that one a go.
Absolutely. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Play us on out.
All right. Got a bottle sitting on my shelf. It stands alone, strong and full of pain. It ain't the whiskey, but the hurt that still remains. It gone too soon. I hope you're walking on streets paved with gold, talking with Jesus and your grandpa too. Wish you were here, but we'll meet again one day, and I'll bring the bottle. I'll bring the bottle, and I'll pour out around and talk about good times. But was hard without you around. You flew off to heaven, but back home down below, it was hard to watch you go. The day you left us, the whole world seemed still. I didn't know which way was up or what to feel, but there was comfort in knowing that one day we'll meet again, and I'll bring the bottle. I'll bring the bottle, and I'll pour out around, talk about good times. But was hard without you around. You flew off to heaven, but back home down below, it was hard to watch you go. I'll bring the bottle, and I'll pour out around, talk about good times. But was hard without you around. You flew off to heaven, but back home down below, it was hard to watch you go. Oh, it was hard to watch you go. got a bottle sitting on my shelf.
Woo!
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
No, God bless you.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
Love that song.
No, I appreciate it. It's close to the chest for sure.
Trying not to cry. My dad, when he died the next year, we went. Oh my gosh.
To Disney?
Yeah. Thank you for the laugh.
She just got back from Disney, so I had to throw that plug.
Our big, yeah, thank you. Our big thing on Christmas and Thanksgiving morning when I was growing up was Bloody Marys. There was a whole family thing and neighbors. And so the year after he died, we went and we had a Bloody Mary, and it was great. And poured. My mom said, "Let's pour it around and give him a drink." I'm like, "Okay, that's a little weird, but we did."
Hey, but you know,
it's I love that.
It keeps
love
those
it.
these those little the things you have together like special, and it's it's good memories. It's like then it's whether it's the smell of like that spicy tomato, and next time it just
I know.
it kind of ingrains into you those little things that make take you to a good place. Even though even and sometimes good has sadness to it, but that doesn't take away from the impact and the importance that person had in your life.
No. So thank you for writing that song. See,
I appreciate it.
You had your bottle memory, and I had mine, and it just like summed it out and touched me. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me out.
Thanks for being here.